everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you had an absolutely amazing Christmas and a New Year. Today is the first. Hope you didn't party too hard last night. I myself just stayed home because at my age, don't like crowds. Just me, whatever. So normally, I'm sure you've watched other videos out there from other channels, and they were doing like their year in review, and they're doing all these other things. I took Christmas and New Year's off to be with my family, hang out with loved ones, etc. Still taught classes on the weekends, but I took the time for me. I hope you took some time for you and yours. So, overall, last year was great. Had some really good videos, had a lot of fun, taught some amazing classes. Did get, whacked in the thigh by a bullet. Granted, it was a ricochet. It still left a nasty bruise. That was probably the most exciting thing I had. Did a little traveling, so on and so forth. Before we get too far into the video, I just want to remind you that down below in the description is a link to the merch store. We always have some new and interesting designs going on. You may have noticed that I've taken a bunch out that weren't performing, or it was time to retire them. And of course, there's some new ones. Today, I am rocking Aero Precision sweatshirt because that's what I had. Didn't really plan on doing a video, but I felt it was important. Of course, we have Patreon, we have locals, and there's always memberships available. All right, now, what do I want to talk about today? Well, besides the mass casualty thing that happened in Louisiana on Bourbon Street last night, we're not even going to cover any of that because it's still brand new and a lot of information is coming out. But I do want to let you know that over the course of last year, teaching all the classes, a lot of people have been asking and reaching out to me asking for private instruction. All right, nothing like running around doing CQC or advanced things. We're talking about just basic shooting. A little help maybe finding the first gun or honing their skill level, getting rid of some bad habits, things like that. So if that is something that's interesting to you, then all you have to do is email me at thegunguru@Patreon. Jesus, not Patreon. thegunguru@protonmail.com, and we can set up a time and a day. We're just going to end up going down to Wolf's for about an hour or so, and the price is about $160 for the hour. That's going to cover your ammo, your range time, the insurance that's involved, and all that other good stuff. So if you're interested in a private lesson, or you're one of the students that I had in class and you're wanting to sign up, email me there and I'll get back to you and we'll set up a day and a time. It's usually going to be during the week since I am quite busy on the weekends teaching. We have a lot of things in the works that are coming up. We've got gun reviews. We've got some belt reviews. Got legal flashbangs. That is a non-destructive, non-incendiary device that can be used for training, for home defense, etc. We got that coming up. And of course, we'll be discussing any new laws that are pushed in our great state of Connecticut. Speaking of laws, today there are actually a whole bunch of gun laws that take effect across the country. I got a list of them here. Now, violent crime rates do appear to be falling throughout the country post-pandemic. During the pandemic, we did see a massive uptick. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, that's because crime went up through the roof because everybody was quarantining, and now that we're not, and cooties is over, people are kind of getting back to a normal life. I think it's during the pandemic, everybody's locked down, and nobody really had anything better to do but stew with their own thoughts and kind of freak out, and we saw a massive uptick in people getting their permits and buying firearms. That being said, what it boils down to is not that things are getting back to normal, it's that things are getting to the point to where The bad element is realizing that if they fuck around, they will find out. And that's the trajectory of our country now, FAFO. We see it all the time. There was just over the weekend, there was a home invasion in Florida, and the homeowner shot the home intruders. And the sheriff is like, good on you. Now, understand that if it happens here in Connecticut, you are going to jail, right? It is not like Florida. It is not like other states like Texas, etc. Right? We do have a castle doctrine. However, I always teach people when it comes to the laws and castle doctrine, you are still going to be charged because it's Connecticut. So there you go. According to the article that I'm discussing, in 2024, we saw nearly 500 mass shootings, according to a database maintained by Gun Violence America. Now, with that being said, what is their criteria for a mass shooting? 1 or more? 2 or more? It's misleading, right? They're trying to pad these numbers. But the deadliest one did occur in Chicago in the suburbs in January of last year, where 8 people died. That being said, it's Chicago, it's Chirac, and that is a normal weekend. But it's funny that the state that has the strictest gun laws in our country has the worst gun violence. It's because they're strict on the law-abiding citizen maintaining their Second Amendment, having guns, etc. But when it comes to the criminal element, they're very lax on that with like no bail, as in they don't post a bail, they catch you and release you, and you're right back out there. Violent crimes, run amok with gangs, etc. Okay? So many states have taken it upon themselves last year to pass pretty big gun control measures. Now, the federal government has been crying and whining that they want stricter gun rules, right? They want common sense gun control, like universal background checks, which is a gun registry. Much like we have here in Connecticut with our DPS 3s, we are forced, if I want to sell a gun, I am forced to go to an FFL to get the gun out of my name and then have it placed in whoever's buying that gun's name. They have to do their 4473, fill out another DPS 3, get a transaction number, blah, blah, blah. That is a registry. We know there's a previous video, if I remember, I'll put it up here somewhere, where you see the back end of everything. It's a gun registry. The state will tell you they don't have one, but they have one. I guarantee you guys that. It's the DPS 3. You get a copy, the FFL keeps a copy, your local PD gets a copy, and the state police get a copy. SLFU in particular. So that's a gun registry. I don't care what they say. Now, that is your universal background check. That's how the federal government would implement it. Something with like DPS 3s. Okay, they want red flag laws. No. Our red flag laws in Connecticut are technically the blueprint that they want for the rest of the country. The problem is it's dystopian. And when I cover the red flag laws in classes, I always ask the students, hey, how long do you think it took for somebody to start abusing this? And they're like, oh, within the day. It's like pretty much. I had somebody in class who was red flagged by their neighbor 3 years prior to him taking the class. Took 3 years to clear it all up. And he had to go back to the class to get his permit back. Anyways, so the neighbor red flagged him. They came in, they revoked his permit, seized his gun, seized his ammo, blah, blah, blah. What crime did he commit? He didn't really commit a crime. It's the neighbor and him had an argument because the firewood pile was about a 1/4 inch over the property line. The neighbor didn't like it. And the guy basically told the neighbor, get over it. It's a 1/4 inch. It's not that big of a deal. Well, the neighbor decided to red flag him because he felt like the guy was a threat to him because they argued and he was a gun owner. And that's how the red flags work. All right. And of course, they want to do an assault weapons ban, which hopefully the Supreme Court will get off their ass and finally hear a case dealing with these so-called assault weapon bans and show that it is a firearm that is in common use. Therefore, you cannot ban them, which means the others, AR-15s, AR-10s, AK-47, all the stuff that Connecticut has banned, all of a sudden becomes legal again because it's unconstitutional, which we all know. Now, we do have Grant v. Lamont in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. It's kind of petered out. Things are going on there. The court hasn't given us a ruling yet. You've got the one out of Maryland, Snopes, I believe it is. That's the one that's actually before the Supreme Court. But they were supposed to pick it up last month, and, well, they kind of dragged the collective asses on that one. So now we're hoping that sometime this month they'll pick it up. And then, of course, we have numerous cases coming out of Illinois where one of their courts just gave basically their ruling, and immediately the state of Illinois appealed, and it's going back to, I think it's the Seventh Circuit. Who knows? Eventually, those will make their way up to the Supreme Court if the Supreme Court fails to pick up the Snopes case, which I really do hope they do. All right, but let's talk about what states enacted what. It's not all bad. Some states were actually pretty good. All right. South Carolina and Louisiana both passed legislation in 2024 allowing lawful gun owners to carry firearms without a permit. They have constitutional carry now. Colorado, Maine, and New Mexico tried to pass different gun bans, which all failed because there was no appetite for it. There you go. But what laws actually go in effect today? All right. California gun safety regulations going into effect today. Let's see. It's a series of laws aimed to strengthen gun safety regulations. Those include requiring schools to implement safety programs and plans, training, and establishing an Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which have deadlines in the coming years. Okay, so now why am I covering that? That was California. Well, it's simple. Connecticut does not follow far behind New York, Massachusetts, California, and a bunch of other states. When they pass something, our legislative bodies are like, you know what? That's a really good idea. And then all of a sudden, we get these stupid-ass laws here in Connecticut, which make it even harder for us to buy guns. So there you go. Now, when they talk about requiring schools to implement safety programs and plans, what are they? That's what I'd like to know. But that's all they say. Now, you know, Connecticut, part of our legislative package years ago, made it mandatory that schools, high schools, throughout the state of Connecticut teach gun safety courses. In fact, the curriculum is already written. CCDL came up with the curriculum. State police approved it and said, this is great. This program is completely funded because it is law. How many high schools do you know have a gun safety course that they offer to their students? None. Correct. Why? Because they don't want to do it. It's a law that they're just ignoring. It's nice how they can ignore laws they don't like. But yes, it is law. It was part of one of the packages we passed a couple of years back that we had to have gun safety courses for students. Teach them basic things like, hey, you know, the 4 cardinal rules. Treat every gun as if it's loaded. Don't point the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. You know, keep your finger off the trigger. Things like that. But for some reason, our schools don't teach them. All right? Now, let's see what else they passed. So, they passed AB 1483, which strengthens rules against applying for more than one handgun in a 30-day period. Here in Connecticut, we're not that dystopian. We are limited to 3. Well, you're limited to 3. I'm limited to 6 because I'm a firearms instructor, which makes me more responsible, I guess. I don't know. But you are limited to 3 handguns per month. Now, whose job is it to track that? Nobody really knows. Is it your job? Is it the FFL's job? Or is it SLFU's job? Pretty sure it's supposed to be on SLFU. But they did, during the training, say, well, gun stores are supposed to ask the customer how many guns they've purchased in the past month. Well, who's going to tell the truth, right? I mean, you're going to be like, well, I have no idea. This is only my second one. Well, maybe it's your 5th one. Well, Who gets punished for that? You for lying, the FFL for not catching it, or SLFU for not doing their damn job? That's curious. If you guys know the answer, put it down in the comments below. AB 1598, which requires firearms dealer to provide a consumer with a pamphlet covering reasons for risks of firearm ownership, including increased risk of death to someone in the household by suicide, homicide, or unintentional injury. Does that sound familiar? Well, Connecticut already has something like that. So you may have noticed when you purchase a gun, you get all these stupid little pamphlets, right? We get one for safe storage. There's one from the ATF, which is basically this. So Connecticut, we kind of already have something like this. AB 2917. It guides courts to expand considerations for gun violence restraining orders to include threats of violence, specifically hate-based threats. They're expanding their red flag laws. That's it. All right, that was California. Colorado, which always thought to be like Pro 2A, but they're slipping. Colorado now requires secure storage in vehicles and training for concealed carry. It goes into effect today. Later in 2005, Coloradians, whatever you want to call them, who want to apply for concealed carry permits are going to be required to complete an 8-hour training course, which will include a written exam and live fire exercises. The law, which goes into effect July 1st, also will prohibit anyone who has been convicted of certain misdemeanor offenses from obtaining a concealed carry permit if those offenses happen within a 5-year time frame of the application. New Hampshire. They bolstered gun rights. It's a good one. So HB 1186 strengthened privacy protections around gun laws by prohibiting the use of specific merchant codes for gun stores, guns, ammunition of the kind. So, I'm sure you heard about it in the news that Discover, Visa, MasterCard were building brand new codes. So when you went to a gun store and you purchased a firearm, it would be flagged in their system with a certain code saying it's a gun versus where it is now where it was just sporting goods. It's nobody's business what I buy, where I buy it, when I buy it. Less the credit card company's business. It's going to force people to use cash. I mean, cash is king, right? But then that could raise red flags. Okay? HB 1336 will bar employers from forbidding employees from storing guns in locked vehicles. So technically, you could bring your gun, outside of schools, things like that, but you work for, say, like Aetna or, some other corporation, you could bring your firearm to work as long as it stays locked in your vehicle. It doesn't do you much good down there because if something bad is happening within your office, well, you got your gun with you. Unfortunately, it's down in the parking lot, so you're going to have to run down through the building, go get your gun, and run back. Nah. At that point, I'm out of the building. I'm gone. The gun is supposed to be on me for my self-defense. But at least they can't stop them from storing it in their car. I guess it's something. They also passed SB 322, which already went into effect last July, which protects law enforcement officers who issue gun license in good faith. So, you do your background check and the police officer issues you your permit. If they didn't catch something, it could have fell on the cop, right? It was the cop's fault. Well, they changed the law to where it's like, hey, the cop did everything in good faith. He did miss a thing. He's not held responsible, which is fine, I guess. But if our background system our background checks and all this stuff is so great and so good, we shouldn't have to have any of this. But whatever. Kentucky has joined more than a dozen other states to enact an NRA-backed legislation, which is the law that prohibits assigning codes for gun retailers. It goes back to the credit card thing. So, yes, New Hampshire did it, but Kentucky and there's a bunch of other states that also did it. All right? So, 10 states did it last year. We're not going to cover them all. Minnesota, New York, Delaware. all have new gun laws that go into effect today. Minnesota passed a law banning binary triggers. They're banned here in Connecticut. The ATF tried to ban them, and it didn't go well. The court said, sorry, you can't do that. So they're illegal again, but Minnesota passed their own legislation saying, they're not legal here. So they're going to have to challenge that one. Delaware now includes university campuses as safe school zones, making it a felony offense to possess a firearm on campus. Connecticut's the same way. So it's already a law here. You bring a gun onto a college campus here in Connecticut, it's a felony, right? Boom. New York. Yeah, New York. This one won't affect us. However, New York's right there, and Lamont really does just love to follow in New York's buffoonery. So, what did New York do? New York will now require gun dealers to post signs warning consumers of the risk of gun ownership, starting on the 7th. Not today, the 7th. All right? So, New York is also implementing a statewide registry of extreme risk protection orders, which will bar a person from owning a gun temporarily if they are deemed at risk to themselves or others. So not just red flagging somebody, but you're going into a registry until you are proven innocent or deemed not a threat to yourself or to others, which is basically the same thing, as in you have to prove your innocence. So they are going to punish you before you're convicted of a crime. It basically expands their red flags by including this registry. Now, the registry, is it going to be a searchable database for police or for everybody? Is it going to be like a sex offender registry where basically we all, as the public, get to see who's on this list? Who's it going to be? Is it searchable? Is it going to be somebody that just gets in an argument with a spouse? Is it going to be somebody who has a rebellious teenager and they're trying to lay down the law as a parent, and it's considered a domestic type thing? Is it where a boyfriend and girlfriend have a horrible, nasty breakup? I don't know. They really don't define it. They just say they're creating a registry for the risk protection orders. Sounds like it's a list you don't want to be on. So, again, it's going to make you extra super paranoid. I always equate it to this. Red flag laws. Here's how it works. Because the way Connecticut's work, and I've covered this to nausea, the key word is concerned community member, which is anybody, right? Neighbors, just random people on the street. They just have to sign that affidavit saying that they feel like you're a threat to yourself or others. And then guns are removed, blah, blah, blah. We all know this. What does it remind me of? I'm old enough to remember the Soviet Union. And I've heard stories of neighbors in, those government apartment complexes where the neighbors would be arguing over something. And then one of the neighbors would pick up the phone and would call the party and say, hey, this is where I live, and my neighbor at this address is saying bad things about the party. They're saying things against our government. And lo and behold, the next morning, you would wake up, and that apartment would be empty, cleaned out, and the people that were there are just gone, never to be seen again. You just dimed them out, and the government came and took them. Maybe they sent them off to re-education camps. Maybe they sent them off to gulags. Maybe they just took them out back and put one in the back of their head. I don't know. But it's the Soviet Union. Use your imagination. But that's how the red flags law work, right? Your neighbor doesn't like where your woodpile is. They can red flag you. A CNA shows up to a patient's house for in-home care, and the person may be older and have guns and ammunition. They're going to will them to their children or their grandkids or whatever, but the CNA just doesn't feel comfortable that old person has access to guns. So they red flag them. And then the police are going to come in and take all the stuff, guns, the ammo, revoke the permit, and what's the crime? There is no crime. The CNA just felt uncomfortable. And both of those are true stories. I don't like red flag laws. I think they're unconstitutional. Unfortunately, they're in 48 states. And like I just told you, a lot of states are expanding on them. So, what laws do you think Connecticut's going to go after this legislative session this year? I know they are. Vermont's already addressed it and said that they've got a whole slew of laws they're going to try and pass. Basically, everything that got stripped out of HB 6667 last year. Remember, what we got is only about 40% of what the original law was. Due to people like Cooley and Fishbein and a few other Republicans, they pretty much pulled things out of the law. I mean, they had to compromise, and it's still bad what got passed, but it could have been way worse. That being said, Vermont has said they're coming for that other 60%. So, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. And let me know how your Christmas went and how your New Year's went. Let me know if you guys got anything cool for Christmas. Any new tools, new equipment, some new guns, things like that. And coming up here soon, we're going to have some reviews and some other good things. So, y'all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.